You can support the Double Loop Podcast by contributing at patreon.com/Double Loop Podcast. Thank you to our supporters, and we hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Double Loop Podcast, your source for everything about fingerprints. While you're working on your comparisons, we'll talk about comparisons. Greetings to Brentwood, Tennessee. I'm Eric Ray.
And I'm Glenn Langenberg.
Well, Glenn, it's going to kind of be a short episode between the two of us. I was in Ontario, California a little bit ago and recorded some conversations with some of the people there in the class. Had to do a little cajoling to convince them that it was going to be a fun discussion about fingerprints, but as you'll hear here soon, I think we had a pretty good talk, and some interesting topics and things came up, and it was just a fun little talk about fingerprints after a whole days of class talking about fingerprints.
Yeah, I love these conversations with students that are just more off the cuff and everyday fingerprint examinations. I know a lot of people that listen to the show in various ways, that they will either listen to the episode, on their way to work, or I even know some, agencies that, once a week they'll get together and listen to it all together and then talk about things. I like that fingerprint examiners like to talk about their discipline and continue to explore different issues, and it's nice, these little vignettes where you get a chance to talk to, everyday examiners.
Well, why don't we jump right in, play that whole conversation, and then come back here at the end. So, hello everybody out there on the Double Loop Podcast. I'm here in Ontario, California. Penny Deckent and I are teaching our exclusionology class out here for a bunch of California examiners. Say hi, Penny.
Hello.
And we got 3 attendees from the class here tonight to talk on the Double Loop Podcast. Would you guys introduce yourselves real quick?
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm from San Bernardino County Cal ID Layton Unit.
Nicole, Layton Print Examiner, Kern County Sheriff's Office.
Jackie from the Evidence Technician and Kern County Sheriff's Office.
All right. So we're, 2/3 of the way through the class. We've gone through the first 2 days, and I got to ask you guys the most important question so far of any question I'll ask tonight. What do you think of my awesome fingerprint Adidas?
They're great.
I want a pair.
You want a pair? Okay. So they kind of went around an email a few weeks ago, and then Penny insisted that we each get a pair, and they match my suit, so totally wore them today. Their sneakers are Adidas, but they've got fingerprints all over them, and they are awesome. So if you take a class from me here in the near future, I'll make sure to wear them. Or if you are at the IAI conference in Cincinnati, that Friday night banquet, I'll be styling in my fingerprint Adidas.
But I guess us women are kind of out of it because they don't make women's sizes, right?
Well,
but I went ahead and bought one of the men's sizes for myself. They're a little bit big, so I have to wear big socks. But I'll be wearing them too.
But you also have your own pair of fingerprint shoes from the RuPaul's collection.
Collection. They are gold and black, and they are ridge detail. They're very high heels, and they're very awesome. And
she typically wears them on the Friday night banquets at the IAI conference. She did offer a couple years ago to get me a pair of the size 13s, assuming that being the RuPaul collection,
I was going to say.
you could probably get a size 13. And I always said no, but once these came out, these Adidas, I was all over it. So first off, ladies, just want to talk. Glenn and I usually do this when we talk to other Layton Print examiners, is ask, how did you fall into the Layton Print field?
I actually went to school for anthropology, and I was interested in forensic anthropology, and for my master's degree, I had to do an internship. And the only internship I could find where someone would take me was at the Kern County Sheriff's Office. And so I did crime scene work there. There wasn't a lot of anthropology work to do, but I just ended up fitting in, and there was a job opening, and I applied, and I got the job, and I ended up loving comparisons.
You saw that you're pretty good at it. you liked actually solving the puzzles and doing it, and just kind of stuck there and kept doing it.
Yes.
All right. That was Heather from Mesa also has an anthropology degree, doesn't she?
Yes.
All right.
Let's see. I actually started off a psychology major. Thought I wanted to go into criminal profiling. Thank you, Silence of the Lambs. But it turned out actually a lot of the forensics programs that the college offered counted towards the general ed credits. Fell in love with forensic pathology. Ended up taking a fingerprint course, a crime scene analysis course, and turned out those classes actually made me qualified. San Bernardino started hiring. Tested, did well, started off in 10 prints, and Layton's was just kind of like the next step. It was a bigger challenge and something I definitely had to be a part of. So,
how long did you do 10 prints for then?
I did 10 prints for 6 years.
6 years, okay.
Waiting for an opening.
It seems like that's becoming more rare and rare that people go through 10 prints to get to Layton's. And that used to be the case, like, absolutely, that was like the path people took. But more and more, it seems like agencies are hiring, techs to do 10 prints, and then they just stay 10 print examiners their entire career, while they may get someone with a science degree to go jump right into Layton's without ever doing 10 prints first.
We have a person who she has a biochem degree, and we actually both went into the 10 print division thinking we could move from there to CSI, just because that's when all the CSI shows came out and it seemed super glorified. We didn't realize that you actually start in CSI and move up to where we ended up. So our education, not knowing what we were getting into, it actually was a step up from where we thought we wanted to be. And now both of us agree that, we don't actually want to be in the field. We really enjoy what we're doing now.
Right.
I started in 10 print also, and I was doing that for 3 years. And then I went into the technical investigation unit, and in the technical investigation unit, we actually work the crime scenes, and about half our job is crime scenes, and the other half is latent print.
Okay, so you guys are out there at the scene a lot of time collecting stuff that you then compare later on. You take it through the entire life cycle of the case.
Yes.
And that's even another rare thing, I think. A lot of latent people, maybe they just do the comparisons, or maybe they start with getting the evidence in the lab, but they're not necessarily at the scene a lot of the time. So you guys are 2 days into the class. What are some initial thoughts so far of what you guys have seen?
I love it. I took your 4-hour workshop at IAI this past year, the 100th anniversary. It was one of those classes that it made you, more kind of aware of what you were doing. You were less likely to give weight to what you thought was a good idea, but you were also more confident in the whole scale system as far as what you put weight on. And even though you had one discrepancy, the overall impression was an ID. So to me, it kind of gave you a boost in confidence, but also made you very cautious and less likely to ID the things that were probably on the smaller scale as far as weight.
Okay. So you see, it's definitely worth it then, even after taking the 4-hour class, to do the full 3 days.
Oh, it's Okay. Honestly, the whole entire day you're engaged, you're curious. We went past 5 o'clock today, and I was not complaining at all. I would have gone till 6.
Okay.
I'm kind of feeling the opposite way with the confidence. So I feel like, I've been doing this awesome job for so many years, and then I come and I'm like, do I do that? Do I do that? I feel like very sketchy and stuff, but I think I question it for a minute, and then I'm like, no, I think I'm really doing a good job. But I think there's still a lot to learn.
Right.
No, that's good, though, because that's how I think we left IAI, as far as you question your decisions a lot more, but in a good way. I think it was more beneficial to kind of question your decisions, because there was one sample that you guys provided at IAI that I think it was a Delta. And it was one of those that a lot of people actually were more comfortable IDing. and I was on the more inconclusive side, and it actually ended up being an exclusion. So it kind of made one of those things where, as a newer examiner, that I'm like, I'm not so sure about this, but I'm more confident in saying I'm not sure about this, where you've actually seen it.
Right. And we'll talk about that one tomorrow, because it's in this class too. There's a couple examples that we reuse in the short version versus this longer version. But that's just because they're just such great examples to talk about, and they're just so interesting to talk about. People confuse a latent being interesting to talk about with a latent Eric is trying to trick us with, and it's totally just interesting, not at all tricksy.
No, I felt that way all day.
Yes.
Like you gave us number 40, for example, right? And I'm like, this is the easiest thing in the world. Like, am I supposed to ID this? I don't see anything here, but I know that it's so IDable. But is IDable even a word? I don't know.
We make up words. It's fine.
But I feel like a lot of it is your trickiness. Every time I look at one, I'm like, oh, this is a trick.
Well, Penny has to go through it first, because she's generally the guinea pig for all these examples, and she generally doesn't like being the guinea pig for them, but I always get so excited and run to Penny and say, hey, take a look at this one. What do you think?
And then I say, oh, no. and he always wants to know my first impression, and he kind of stands there like a child going, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'm like, okay, in a regular examination, you would want me to, take my time with it. You would want me to go through the examination, but I can already tell in his face when he hands me this new example that he wants me to kind of give him my first impression. So a lot of times I'm like, well, I don't see anything that matches, but I have a bad feeling about saying it's an exclusion because I know what you're going to say. And so a lot of these examples, what I really like about the class is that it helps us all talk about what we see every day, because we don't get the opportunity to do that very often. When we go to court, we don't always get to talk about the latents that we compare. A lot of times when we go to court especially, it's about, I didn't get any latents on anything. So I think it's a really good practice for us to actually start talking about the latents and actually get, better at talking about what's going on in the impressions.
Mo, you mentioned being at the IAI up in Sacramento. Did either of you guys get a chance to go to that conference?
Not in Sacramento.
Not in Sacramento. But you've been to conferences before, IAI conferences, the big national conferences before.
Yes, I think the last one we went to was Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, okay. What is your best, craziest, funniest, most interesting story about being at an IAI conference at any point in time?
Okay,
I think, Melissa, I think we got some looks on faces
I really
here.
have a story, but it has nothing to do with fingerprints.
Okay, that's fine.
I think I went to a conference one night and we went to the piano. I don't even remember where it was
Like
at.
a dueling
But it
pianos?
was a dueling piano, and I think I had to wear a toilet on my head, like a toilet seat on my head. Yeah.
And we went and saw the sharks, the whales and stuff. And the IAI, they're the ones who took us to it.
Okay. Oh, like in Rhode Island?
No,
Oh,
this
okay.
was. I don't even remember.
Was it Tampa?
It must have been San Diego.
Oh, okay. San Diego makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
we went to
that's fun.
we went to
San
the
Diego was fun.
aquarium, yeah, and they did some strange thing, and I had to wear this toilet seat on my head. So there you
And
go.
we played the drums like this with the lid of
The trash
can.
can. It's like a trash can. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. That's not where I had to wear. I'm like, okay, like, crazy hat, shoe, toilet lid. Okay. Well, can you top that one?
Probably. Tampa was fun. Let's see, in the class or outside of the class? So
Either way.
We've got two stories.
The two stories. Let's hear both stories then.
All right, let's see. Outside of class, I believe she was a supervisor. I won't say from where, but she made me. And we'll say she pretty much made me. We did dance on the bar at Coyote Ugly.
Woo!
And yeah, we made some friends. It was fun.
We could have been there.
Yeah, that was a good time. No, but during it was our first encounter with, I'm going to say it wrong. It's the it's not microcil, it's the, help me out. Accutrans. Thank you. So we got to play, and again, in San Bernardino, we don't process our own stuff, so playing with the stuff, it was super fun. So we played with golf balls and the other things that the instructor had brought for us to play with. Well, my coworker and I, we went outside the box. She actually Accutrans my lips.
Oh.
And we were just having fun with it. We were being silly and goofy. It was in the next year's IAI, the brochure. There was a picture of it. So, I mean, I think it's pretty rad that we made the brochure for the next year. Just kind of screwing around, but I still have that impression today. That's pretty cool.
A couple more questions for you guys. First, what is your favorite episode of Forensic Files?
Actually, I don't know if it was Dateline or 48 Hours, but I was watching one of them, and I just watch it for background. What really stuck in my mind is they had the guy testifying, and they asked him about the DNA, and this is about DNA, and they said, oh, well, couldn't the cat have moved the DNA? And he's like, and then they show him a picture, and sure enough, the cat's sitting right there, and the cat was just walking around their crime scene, and they had proof of it. And so now, if I'm at a crime scene, I'm like, get the dog out of here, get that cat out of here, you know, because it made a difference. Yes. So I think if you watch those shows, you do kind of pick up some things on it.
Some of the Forensic Files, like some of the older ones, do you guys ever like watch the whole show and kind of go,
not quite.
Yeah, like.
Well, honestly, I think that's kind of the problem with all those shows at this point, where from a forensics standpoint, you're more, I don't know, qualified to kind of pick the show apart and say, okay, this could happen, that what he's saying actually is true, but you've got so many civilians who are watching these shows, and then they serve on a jury, and they apply what they think they've learned from Forensics Files, or even, I hate to say it, CSI Miami. And they're like, oh, no, that couldn't have happened because the cat clearly, you know, that's a cat hair and cat threw up on the body, and I don't know, like, who knows, but it's got such a warped perception now because everyone's a forensics expert thanks to Forensics Files. Hey, if MacGyver can make a bomb out of toothpaste and a shoestring, I don't know.
MacGyver's the man. He can.
We actually have
anything.
a MacGyver at our office. Yeah, he can do all those things for real.
Not just someone named MacGyver. But someone who does all the tricks.
Yes.
Okay. Last question of the night. What do you guys think is the biggest challenge facing the latent print field over the next 5 to 10 years? Serious question, I know.
For me, maybe not in the next 5 to 10 years, but like currently, we need training. We have all these people, say, for example, Jackie, has been there for a long time. She has all this information. And then we have new people coming in, and the hardest part is getting them trained. Getting all of her information into that new body is really difficult. We haven't had to train someone in many years, and now all of a sudden we have 4 new people, and we're like, we don't know what to do, and you know, how do we get them all this knowledge that these people who've been here for 20 plus years have? That's a big challenge for us right now.
Yeah, I see that. I can remember even Alice Maceo talking about that. All of a sudden, like all at the same time, they had to hire a whole new batch of people, and Alice had to develop a training program basically from scratch. We went through a period. Granted, we had some people, you know, a bunch of people with the kind of 3 to 7 years range of experience. But we had that group, but we had our group of 20 plus year people all leave within like a year of each other. I mean, Pat Wertheim being, you know, probably the most well-known examiner in Arizona that left, but at the same time, we had a guy with 20 plus years move on to another lab, another lady with 15 plus years move on, another guy with like 30 years retire, and all of a sudden our experience level just dropped significantly. Yeah, that can be a real challenge for a lot of agencies to kind of get back up to that that level of experience that they'd been used to.
No, I would agree. Training is probably one of, obviously, like the biggest things, because there's so many things that you have to encompass into training. For us personally, and I think it's just only going to get worse, is the fact that we have to now defend our science. Where in the past, fingerprint examinations have just kind of always been accepted. But then with the Madrid bombing and was it Scotland Yard?
Oh, Shirley McKee.
Shirley, yes. With that whole thing, especially because it's coming back into the media, it's not necessarily an infallible science. So because of all these mistakes that have made the media, we're being attacked, and I understand where that's coming from, but there's so much more emphasis on not only knowing your science, being able to train in just being able to do your job, but now you have to know how to defend it. That part, I think, is just kind of, it's becoming a pain in the butt. Can I say that?
Sure. Oh, we're rated. A couple episodes we have maybe are rated PG. We frequently steer into the PG-13 or even R-rated territory. If we get really worked up about something, we might drop an F-bomb or two. But so pain in the butt is
it sucks. I mean, honestly, to just something so simple when you're being attacked by people who don't really honestly know the field, especially with Simon Cole. It's just.
I think though, I think that's kind of our fault, right? So we're doing this job, and then if I'm going to say, oh, you can do the job, but I don't expect you to know why, that's our fault. We should know why. We should be able to say why. We should practice saying why. Do moot courts with our people. I think that's all part of it.
That's a good point.
We might not be, scientists. I'm not, wearing a lab coat and have a mask on and all this stuff.
No.
But
I've watched movies for many, many years, and I've been given a white lab coat, and I know that all it takes for science to be happening is a white lab coat and beakers of colored liquids. And we've got the colored liquids, like all the different dye stains and stuff covered. We got the white lab coat, or like the bunny suit out at the crime scene, same kind of thing. Those are scientists too. So absolutely, we're absolutely scientists, according to Hollywood.
Yeah. But I'm just saying we should know our stuff, and I'm guilty of it too. I don't know everything there is to know about latents, but I think I should.
Well, you know what? The really good thing is and it's exciting, is that we're living in such an exciting time in latent prints where we have better answers than we've ever had before. With some of the new research that's out there, I mean, everyone talks about the black box, but it really is such this great thing that can be the answer for so many questions. But there's also all sorts of other research that's coming out every year where we can give better answers than we've ever been able to give before. And it just takes a matter of getting familiar with that and getting familiar with how to convey all that information to the judge and jury. It should be, again, it's catching up now with all this new stuff, but getting easier and easier and easier to defend what we do based on stuff that's out there now.
No, it's true. Scientists are kind of, I don't know, they're the superhero of accepting a challenge, where as a scientist, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm not so sure about that, most of us are going to rise to the challenge and be like, no, I'm pretty sure you can, and we're going to prove it to you. Or we're at least going to try. So, no, I think you guys are right in the fact that they keep bringing us this stuff, but everyone keeps rising to the challenge to either justify our means and actions, or, okay, maybe you're right, but now we're going to find a different way to do it.
So, you mentioned Simon Cole. This is kind of, Southern California. He's out here. Have you guys had to had him as a defense expert or any other defense expert in latent print trial?
He actually has been called in twice for San Bernardino County in 2 different trials. One didn't actually go, the other one did, but
We're still worked out okay?
It worked out good, yeah. Our division was prepared for him. We knew he was coming, and it worked out very well.
All right.
Thank goodness.
I think
Lots of
I've
stress.
had someone look at my case information twice, maybe the same woman, and I've never heard what happened, if she agreed with me or disagreed with me, but my suspect pled. So I'm thinking I'm okay.
Success.
In both cases.
Yeah, both cases.
It actually, it seems, is it same way in California? It seems that that's what happens if you get the guy and it's a solid ID, he just takes a plea. Mm-hmm. Do you guys testify more often on the process, no value, or inconclusive results?
No, I think I testify more. We have preliminary hearings.
Okay.
And I testify more at preliminary hearings. I go to more preliminary hearings than I do jury trials. So usually we go to prelim, they find out what we have, and then they take a plea after that.
Okay. Do you guys do defense interviews, like where the defense attorney comes and asks you questions about what you know?
Just during court.
Just during court. Oh.
So the prosecutor will ask us. It's like a jury trial, but the jury's not there, basically. And we don't have to go into as great of detail. We don't have our courtroom displays or anything like that. But the defense does ask us questions during that time.
Is it like a deposition that you're giving?
No.
No, but it's in court.
It's
the judge
in court.
is there.
The judge is there, yes.
Wow. In Arizona, I guess that's possible, but I don't remember anyone ever going to something like that.
I guess Arizona is a little different, which we hear that all the time, actually. But Arizona is a little different because the defense has the ability to call. They have to go through the prosecutor, but they go through the prosecutor, and if they want to interview us as witnesses, they can interview us. So we can go down, and the prosecutor has the ability to be there or have a representative, but they can come in and ask us. We've done it telephonically. We've done it in our office. Sometimes the prosecutor's there. Sometimes somebody's there for the prosecutor. Sometimes it's just the defense attorney with a recorder, and then they send the recording to the prosecutor. But they have the capability to come in, and usually what we know is when they're coming in as defense attorneys that they're really testing us out to see what kind of witness we're going to be.
So our preliminary hearing is more for the defendant. So it's for the prosecution has to basically say, this is what my case is.
Right.
And then the judge will say, yes, you can be bound over for jury trial, or no, you don't have enough, so we're going to let him go. And that's what the prelim is for.
Right, and that happens, I believe, to some extent in Arizona, but we don't go testify to it. I believe our evidence is just presented to the judge in like a grand jury kind of format without us actually being there.
And the officer, he is the person, the officer detective is the one who presents the evidence.
Right. So sometimes they do that. I'm not sure what it's called, 115.
It's Prop 115.
Prop 115. And sometimes the officer does that, but I think the officer has to have 5 years of experience, or they have to have so many years of experience before they can testify for us. So I've heard, I don't know exactly, but so some of our officers don't have that long, so they can't testify for us, so we have to go, I guess.
We're going to wrap things up here from Ontario, California. I want to thank y'all for coming on the podcast. I know we had to do some convincing, but you guys did great, and we're really glad to have you on. And make sure that you spread the word to your friends and coworkers, and like even enemies and defense attorneys, and anyone that you know to listen to the Southern California episode now of the Double Loop podcast. And we'll see everybody next week.
See you tomorrow.
Bye,
Tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
All right. Well, that was a pretty good conversation there. I wanted to ask you, Glenn. I know we've talked about some of this stuff before, but they had mentioned how they have these prelims where they'll go in California and testify about everything that they have in the case in court, but just as like a preliminary thing, as just a way for the prosecution to kind of lay out everything that they have in the case. Get everything, I guess, approved or whatever, and then move on from there. But then a lot of the times the defense will just take a plea after they hear everything that the prosecution has.
I've heard of things like that for police officers. I mean, different states have similar things where the officer has to attend them in Minnesota. I think they're called Rasmussen hearings, but it's basically where you have this, like you just described, the charges are formally declared and then the evidence gets laid out a bit. But I can't really think of. Well, I can't think of a forensic scientist here in Minnesota that's had to go to any of them.
Right.
Other than the thing that's much more formal, which we talked about before, grand jury hearings,
Right.
Which again, it's the same thing. You're laying out the evidence, and the prosecutor's trying to determine if there's enough to make the charge. So it sounds similar in that way, but I guess I didn't realize that California did that, and certainly these were civilian fingerprint examiners, right?
Right.
Not police officers.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I had not heard that before. Was it a particular area of California where this was happening, or a particular county?
I think this was the examiners talking about it were from a county. I don't want to name the wrong one, but it did seem from the other examiner that was they're from the city, from Ontario, that was the common kind of way that it worked. I wonder. I'm just kind of putting pieces together. We had heard a story a couple months ago here in Arizona. It wasn't like a major case or anything, but the attorney had called up one of our examiners to ask for some clarification on the report, because evidently it was one of these kinds of hearings, but the case officer was just reading all this evidence, and including the fingerprint report, was just kind of reading it and presenting it. This is one of the other things that we're going to have in the case. And the prosecutor, after that was over, called up the lab and said, so when your report says excluded as having been made by, that means it's not him, right? And we said, well, correct. And she said, that's what I thought, because the officer read that in this hearing, read it in excluded as having been made by, meaning it's a hit or it's a match.
Yeah.
So I guess that seems like this kind of setting, but I guess in Arizona, just the officer reads all that evidence in.
Well, yeah, this is definitely something we should ask Lisa when we hopefully have her on here very shortly. It's a good legal question.
Right. So I think in that particular case, they went in and they redid everything. They redid at least the fingerprint part of it to make sure that was correct on the record. But all right, well, thank you, Glenn, for listening, and we'll get back here with some more episodes soon. As always, email us in any questions or comments you have about the show to Eric@RayForensics.com or to Glenn, Glenn, at EliteForensicServices.com. Listen to us every week on Stitcher, SoundCloud, or on iTunes, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.